Hello guys and welcome to a brand new series here on the YouTube channel. I'm Aaron, aka the Cricket Connoisseur, and in this series I'll be taking you through each of the 2021 T20 World Cup squads and giving you my thoughts in terms of the strengths, weaknesses, key players and players to watch out for from each of the squads heading into this year's tournament. Now, as the title of the video suggests, the first one, it was only right to kickstart this series. With this team, I am, of course, talking about the Eagles, the mighty, mighty Namibia. Now, in terms of the strengths and weaknesses, before we get into all that good stuff, I just want to give some background information on Namibia as a side, because some people may not be too familiar with them as a team. Now, in terms of Namibia heading into this year's tournaments, they are the lowest ranked side in terms of the ICC T20I rankings. They're currently 19th in the world. Their head coach is Pierre de Bruyne, someone who'll be very, very familiar to fans of Leicestershire County Cricket Club. He, of course, was their former head coach. And they are, of course, captained by the man who I coined the Namibian Joe Root, Gerhard Erasmus. In addition to all of that background information, this is also the first time that Namibia are appearing in an ICC tournament since the 2003 ICC Cricket World Cup. So there's a lot of pressure on these boys to perform, but at the same time, I think we have to give them an immense amount of credit to even reaching the competition in the first place. They were brilliant in the qualifiers, and of course, I'm wishing them nothing but the very best of luck heading into this year's competition. Now, before we get into the strengths and weaknesses, we do, of course, have the squad. And in terms of the squad, I'm going to be honest, on paper at least, I think it looks very strong. It looks quite well balanced, but there were a couple of notable omissions. But before we get into the strengths and weaknesses, let's have a look at the squad which will be representing Namibia heading into this year's competition. So starting off with Mr. Captain Fantastic himself, we do, of course, have Gerhard Erasmus. Then you've got Stefan Bard, Carl Birkenstock, Michaud de Prier, Jan Freiling, Zane Green, Jan Nicol Lofty-Eaton, Bernard Scholtz, Ben Shikongo, JJ Smith, Ruben Trumpelman, Michael van Lingen, David Visa, Craig Williams, Picky R. France, and rounding off the squad as the travelling reserve, you've got Mauritius Ngapita. Now, in terms of the omissions that I alluded to beforehand, three massive ones for me personally, real integral assets in Namibia's T20 World Cup qualifying campaign were Nico Davin, JP Kutzer, and Zivago Grunewald. None of those guys have made this year's squad, which, to be honest, is very, very surprising, in particular Grunewald, because he's an experienced spinner. And of course, as we've seen in the IPL so far, the surfaces in the UAE, Dubai aside, have been pretty slow. But in terms of the first thing I just want to pick up on about this Namibia side is, of course, the strengths, the assets, what we can, expect to see the Eagles excelling in this year's competition. And first and foremost, we have to mention their top to middle order. On paper, at least, that is a very, very, very strong batting lineup for the Eagles indeed. And for those who have seen Namibia play before, you'll know this is a team which has a go hard or go home mentality. They love hitting sixes. And in the 2019 T20 World Cup qualifier in Dubai, they hit more sixes than any other team in the competition. So this is a side full of power, full of hard-hitting players, full of six-hitting capabilities. And I've absolutely no doubt that that will be the philosophy and, of course, mentality heading into this year's group stage matches. And, of course, in terms of another strength, I alluded to it just there, the seam attack is incredibly strong on paper with the likes of JJ Smith, new addition David Visa, Jan Freiling, Ben Shikongo, Ruben Trumpelman, Michael van Lingen. The Eagles have got an entire plethora of seam options at their disposal heading into this year's competition. So I definitely expect the Eagles to excel in that particular facet of the game. In terms of weaknesses, though, and of course, every side has strengths, every side has weaknesses. The one weakness which I would point out in this Namibian outfit is a lack of specialist spin options. We've mentioned already the lack of Zivago Grunewald. I was surprised not to see him, at least as a travelling reserve, in this squad. But they have got Bernard Scholtz, who, again, for those who've seen before, is a really, really prolific left-arm off-spinner, a talisman in terms of the Namibian spin attack. But I just feel like, aside from Bernard Scholtz, if he was to get injured, of course you got Mauritius Ngapita as the reserve player. But I just feel like if Scholtz was to get injured, Namibia's spin options would be very, very thin indeed. Now, of course, they have got other options, the likes of Gerhard Erasmus, he bowls some off spin, as does Picky R. France. But it's not a team like Oman, for example, who have a plethora of spinners at their disposal, or indeed a Sri Lanka or Bangladesh who have multiple spin options that they can utilise. So that is just one area of weakness, which I would say will affect the Eagles potentially in this year's competition. In terms of another potential area of weakness, it might actually be the addition of David Wiese. And you may be thinking, well, Aaron, what on earth are you on about? David Wiese is a bona fide finisher. He's a fantastic all-rounder. He's got plenty of experience at the highest level of all with South Africa. But the key thing here, this isn't franchise cricket. This isn't a league competition. This is 3 group stage matches. It's not a lot of time for David Wiese to integrate himself into this Namibian outfit. If he doesn't hit the ground running, it could affect the chemistry of the team. We don't know. I, of course, as a fan of Namibian cricket, hope that isn't the case. I hope that he single-handedly wins them some matches. But we don't know how that is going to affect the middle order and the balance of the side, because Namibia have not played with David Wiese in the 11 yet. They've had the likes of Smith in there, of course, who is their bona fide finisher at the moment, loves hitting some sixes. They, of course, have the likes of Erasmus and Craig Williams. But in terms of Wiese, will he bat at number 5? Would he, accelerate himself up the order? Or would he be the finisher at 6 or 7, a role which is more, associated with JJ Smith? So that's another area of potential weakness for the Eagles heading into this year's competition. But in terms of just one final thing before we get into our players to watch, and of course the prediction, Namibia's key player, I think you know exactly who I'm going to select. It is, of course, Gerhard Erasmus, the Namibian Joe Root. He's absolutely class. I remember in 2019 in Dubai against Singapore, he hit Siddhant Singh for 4 back-to-back-to-back-to-back sixes. This boy can play cricket. Let me just tell you that straight away. He's got such an air of class, elegance, style, poise, precision about his game. Gerhard Erasmus really is the talismanic figure of this Namibian attack. And of course, the batting lineup as well. I mean, if Gerhard Erasmus can, put together some memorable performances, who knows? Who knows? The Eagles could potentially get through the group stage. But in terms of key player, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, Gerhard Erasmus, the boy is an absolute gun in the T20I format. Also averages well over 40 in the format. So definitely watch out for the Namibian Joe Root. In terms of players to watch, other players to watch, definitely Ruben Trumpelmann. He's been fantastic in 2021. If you think back to when the Eagles were playing the South African domestic sides, the likes of the Titans and the Knights, Trumpelmann has really, really made a name for himself. He's been absolutely exceptional with the ball in hand, as has Michael van Lingen. So definitely watch for those two in terms of the Namibian seam attack. And of course, David Wiese. I know I mentioned that the lack of game time and the lack of integration with David Wiese could be a potential weakness, but he is a bona fide match winner. David Wiese has done it before for the Proteas. He's done it in franchise cricket. He's had a fantastic 2021 for the St. Lucia Kings in the CPL. So who knows? Who knows? David Wiese could be the spark which ignites this brilliant performance from the Eagles in this year's competition. And of course, I certainly am hoping that is the case. So they are definitely my players to watch for Namibia. And to be honest, another young one as well, Ben Chikongo. Someone to watch out for. Bowls at a good pace. Very, very good young seamer. If he doesn't feature heavily in this year's competition, if Namibia make another one, I've no doubt that we'll hear more of this guy heading into the future. He's a very, very, very talented seamer indeed. So with strengths, weaknesses, key players and players to watch out of the way, that does, of course, leave us with our prediction. And of course, the head is telling me that Namibia probably, on paper at least, are going to finish bottom of their group. They probably will finish at the bottom of Group A against 3 incredibly, incredibly strong sides. But the heart tells me that they could make it. T20 cricket is an unpredictable format. It's one which is incredibly hard to predict. It's very enigmatic in its nature, and it's very, very chaotic at times. Basically, one big innings, a fifer, a hat-trick, a quick-fire 50, a century, can change the entire complexion of a game. So although on paper, Namibia are the minnows, they're the lowest ranked team on paper in terms of their ICC T20I ranking, but something inside of my heart tells me that they could produce some surprises. And let's be completely honest, in the group stage where there's only 3 games, you've got 3 opportunities to write history. 60 overs basically of batting, 60 overs of bowling. Anything's possible. And if I was just to say one thing to these Namibian boys, just go out there and do your absolute best. You've already made the country proud, you've made the fans proud, you've made yourselves proud, and you've made your family proud as well by even reaching this stage for the first time ever. This is the first time Namibia have ever reached the T20 World Cup final stage. So for Namibia, wishing them nothing but the very, very best of luck. Of course, hoping that the likes of Erasmus, Visa, Van Lingen, Trumpelman, and Jan Freiling, and of course Ben Shikonga as well, can do their utmost best to get through the group stage for the men in blue. But of course, that is it for today's video, guys. The first of our video previews for the 2021 T20 World Cup squads. We will, of course, be providing you with some updates over the course of the next few weeks. There's lots of content, many more of these style videos coming your way as well, so do keep an eye out for that. And just one final thing from me, guys. Remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel. As I said, I know I've had a few months off with the county season, doing the podcast as well, but I do love making YouTube videos. And of course, there will be a lot more content coming your way over the next few weeks and months. So do keep an eye out on the channel. But that is it from me for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching the video. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.